guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. And the Australian Grand Prix has just been completed. A really good race. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm going to apologise now if I'm ever so slightly sunburnt and my hair is still a little bit wet. I was at Japfest yesterday, had an amazing day, and it means I'm up super early today because I've got a busy day today. But I've still got to get this out for you at 6 o'clock, so please forgive me that I've not had a chance to get any after sun on me or fully dry my hair before I jumped out of the shower to record this. It has been a busy day yesterday, a lot of catching up today, so let's get on with it. If you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend results, if they have a really good weekend of course, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have an incredibly bad one. There's a few this weekend, isn't there? But of course, Jolyon Palmer can be awarded Palmer of the Week to any driver that does incredibly badly. I do award bonus points and I do award minus points to those that did extra special for the good reasons or the bad. The Crawl Room standings are on the screen now for you to take a look at before I award the scores for this weekend. See how it changes things, see who moves up, see who moves down. And yeah, thank you as always to Dan for completing the scoreboard for me and making it look absolutely lovely. So we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Sha-la-la! Oh, Sha-la-la, you're doing very well this year, Sha-la-la, aren't you? You're doing incredibly well, and I get to say your name with such vigour and passion, a bit like David Croft. Or as David Croft will probably pronounce his own name, Dave Croft. Yes, absolutely. So, for Sha-la-la, it's a perfect 10. I'm going to get straight on with it because it was such an easy race for him to complete and to achieve this weekend. The Ferrari was incredibly good. He achieved pole in qualifying. He led the race. I think he led every lap again. But then again, someone's going to tell me, no, he pitted and someone else overtook him. But he just drove really well. And even just to put the final nail in the coffin into how fantastic his weekend was, he went, do I need to go for fastest lap again? And they said, no, don't bother, Charles, you're fine. No one's going to get near that time. And on the final lap, he went and did a quicker lap. And had he not done that, Alonso would have pipped into the post in achieving the fastest lap. Of course, Alonso wouldn't have scored any points, but he'd have taken the point off Charles. And yeah, had he not done that, it'd have been 25 as opposed to 26. So sometimes it's okay to disobey the team. And he did incredibly well. So congratulations, Sha-la-la, for that. A brilliant drive, and you are awarded a full 10 points. And then we come to Sergio Perez, a decent qualifying in third position behind his teammate Max. In the race, he didn't get off the line particularly well. In fact, actually, to be fair to Checo, he got off the line incredibly well, but there was then boxed in by Max, and that allowed Hamilton to slip through into third place. So that put him on a compromise strategy straight away, really. In terms of he should have really been keeping with Max and Charles ahead and offering a bit of support to Max there. But unfortunately, as it was, by the time he got past Hamilton again, the gap was like 8-9 seconds to Max all the way further ahead. And by this point, Max was already losing time to Charles as well. So it was a really just unfortunate race for Perez and damage limitation after that first corner when Hamilton slipped through. But having said that, he finished second anyway. I don't think anyone was beating Charles this weekend at all. The race pace of that Ferrari looked incredibly well. The Red Bull was suffering from graining. So I think Perez finished in the best position possible for the car who's in this weekend. And for that reason, it's going to be a solid 8 points. 8 points. Not a perfect 10, not a generous 9, a solid 8. Because I feel, you know, at the end of the day, we're still comparing to teammates. And he was being outraced by his teammate at that point, before his teammate's untimely retirement, of course. We'll get into him in a moment. And, of course, for Perez, he was out-qualified by him as well. So we're still being, you know, still a solid 8 points, thoroughly deserving, but compared against his teammate, wasn't as good until the point of retirement. So there we go. 8 points to Checo. And then we come to George Russell, his first podium for Mercedes, and that Mercedes car looked to be struggling in qualifying, didn't they? But they got it all together for the end result. And then in the race, they've got some really nice race pace, which was good to see. They were keeping the Red Bulls honest at times, which was really good. Perez slipped through on Hamilton, as already mentioned, and then Hamilton was able to keep with him. So George was able to keep within that battle and fight as well. So really, really, really good and encouraging to see that Mercedes are getting back on form. I still don't think they're going to suddenly turn up, get first and second on the grid and dominate the races like we're so used to seeing them do. But it was encouraging signs this weekend for the first time this year that it looks like they're getting on top of whatever issues they are suffering. So, yeah, for George's race, he was out-qualified by his teammate just in qualifying. And then, obviously, Hamilton had the better start compared to him. He was in 5th. He did overtake Lando, though, didn't he? He did overtake Norris. So that was quite crucial to his race. His teammate Hamilton then elected to pit early. And then George a lap later and the safety car came out, which meant that George got effectively a free pit stop and jumped all the way up to 3rd place from 5th. Got ahead of Checo as well. And then Checo re-overtook him. Max broke down. And then here he is in 3rd position. And did really well to hold off Hamilton at the end there. I'm not sure if there were team orders or not. We didn't really hear much team radio this weekend. But for George, it was a really, really good race. Encouraging to see. And that first podium for Mercedes on the board, he'll be absolutely loving that. The team will be delighted with it. He'll be happy with it. And now he's second in the driver's standings as well, would you believe? Miles behind, of course, Shalala. But yeah, encouraging signs at Mercedes. And for George, it's going to be 9 points. 9 points to George. Well done, George. And then, as mentioned, we come to Lewis Hamilton. We've already explained part of his race in George's rundown there. He had a great start off the line, up to 3rd place. Was unlucky with the safety car. The timing of it, he pitted, George got a free pit stop, so that was incredibly unfortunate. And also what was unfortunate was Perez had just slipped past him. He'd already come out ahead of Perez after the pit stops, and then Perez was like, just there, he just got through, and then the safety car came out, so he couldn't re-overtake in the DRS zone approaching, which is what he planned to do, of course, so that was unlucky. And then in the race, he stayed in 5th. Not really much else to comment on. Elevated to 4th after Max's retirement. Was trying to close in on George, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. So for Lewis Hamilton, great qualifying, great start to the race. Unfortunate with the safety car. And the way that George was abusing his tyres, I thought maybe, just maybe, Hamilton would have got George at the end, but it wasn't to be. So for that reason, I'm going to award him 8 points. 8 points on the crawl room. I think that was a good effort. I know he was unfortunate with the safety car. And yeah, I think he was unfortunate in the way that Perez overtook him just before the safety car came out as well. So, because he'd maybe attacked back. But it changes the dynamic of the race as always. That's the luck of the draw with the safety car. Hamilton was unlucky this time and unlucky to miss out on a podium. So yeah, 8 points to Hamilton. And then we come to Lando Norris, a superstar in qualifying. I'm sure you'll all agree, qualifying that McLaren in P4. A fantastic effort there, impressive stuff. And then in the race, slipped down at the start, didn't he? Slipped down at the start, which, I mean, to be honest, we were expecting anyway. We weren't really expecting him to keep Mercedes behind him for very long. But it would have been nice to see him have that attack and maybe go forward and, you know, compromise the race for other drivers while he was running his own race. It wasn't to be. The cars effectively slipped through at the start. And then from there, the McLarens just drove a really lonely race. It was honest. You know, they're on the back of the Mercedes for quite a while and then eventually slipped away. And here he is, finishing in a solid P5 position and just drove clean. There wasn't really much to be said about McLaren other than they look to be improving, they look to be doing well. Good stuff. And for Lando Norris, it is going to be a solid 9 points on the board to him. Just knocking a point off for that start because I feel everything else he did this weekend was perfect. An incredible qualifying, a really good end of the race result, but just a shame he lost those couple of positions at the start there. It'd have been nice to see him change the dynamic of the race somewhat, or maybe even finish a position or two higher than he is here, because it was more than possible because McLaren did look to have the pace. So yeah, 9 points too. Lando Norris, great drive. And next up we come to Daniel Ricciardo, the Honey Badger himself at his home Grand Prix for the first time since 2019. Of course, they turned up for 2020, then didn't race, did they? It was all a bit of a farce, that. Oh dear. But nonetheless, for Daniel Ricciardo, it was a great job, actually, great job. Qualifying P7 wasn't the best, was it? Wasn't amazing compared to Lando up in P4, but I think he drove well with the car he's got. And he kept Lando honest. Of course, Lando lost those positions at the start. Ricciardo stayed where he was, and they just followed line astern for the rest of the race. No mistakes, no errors, solid points on the board for the team, and a good result for the car you've got at your home Grand Prix. A very, very good drive by Ricciardo. Lando took all the glory in qualifying, but in the race they were incredibly even, the pair of them. So for that reason, Daniel Ricciardo has been awarded 8 points. 8 points on the cruel room. Good job, Daniel. That was nice to see you have a good result in a not so good car, although looks to be improving really, really well. Yeah, solid result. And next up we come to Esteban Ocon. A good drive by Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, no longer the Alpindia. They've gone back to the blue and pink livery, and it is looking lush on track. For Esteban Ocon, he was lucky really in some respects to out-qualify Alonso. Of course, Alonso having his issues, we'll come to him in a minute. And in the race, he just pretty much stayed where he was. He qualified 8th. He was running round there for a long, long time. And then he finished 7th as a result of Max's DNF. So, all in all, a really lonely, quiet race. He held off cars he needed to hold off. And he just did a good job. But it wasn't anything special, was it? It wasn't anything special. And unfortunately, he did pick up some good points, but it just wasn't an impressive drive. The Alpine looked strong in the hands of Alonso, although he was compromised. And in the hands of Ocon, it looked a safe pair of hands, but it didn't look anything spectacular. So, unfortunately for Esteban, I am going to be a bit harsh here, but it is called the Cruel Room, and it is my series. I do want to win. But it is 7 points. 7 points to Esteban Ocon. Although, you know, it's still a solid score, and I don't want to disrespect him in any way, shape or form, but until the issues of Alonso in qualifying, Alonso had the measure of Ocon, without a shadow of a doubt. Of course, life happens, things happen in Formula 1, but had it not been for that issue in qualifying for Alonso, we could have seen him start up there with Lando potentially, and mixing it up with the Mercedes, and that would have changed the whole complexion of the race for Alonso, and Ocon would have just been saying, another dull drive. So yeah, that's the reason why it's just 7 points to Ocon. It's a case of what could have been as always. He did score some solid points, wasn't anything special. So there you go. That's Esteban Ocon. And then we come to Valtteri Bottas, and his run of Q3 efforts ends after 103 attempts at it. Fantastic though, wasn't it? 103 runs of guaranteeing yourself into Q3. A record that I'm sure will not really ever be broken, because the pace of the cars now are more evenly matched, and you've still got a lot of reliability throwing around. So, yeah, going to be interested to see if anyone breaks that, but I very much doubt it. That is a record for Valtteri Bottas there. And here he is finishing in 8th place, a solid drive after qualifying in P12 in the end. And he drove really, really well. He made some good overtakes. He had to put up with the likes of Lance Stroll, who he dealt with very well and dispatched her very well. And he just drove nicely, and drove nice and smart. So for that reason, Valtteri Bottas has been awarded 8 points on the Cruel Room. A fair score in my assessment. Maybe harsh of a point, losing him a point there. But you know, qualifying wasn't that great. That put him, unfortunately, in the mid-pack, which is just mental, as we all saw. He did incredibly well to make the positions he made up, but had he just scraped into Q3, maybe he could have got away from all that at the start, and he could have been on for some more points. Could have been where Esteban was, perhaps. So, yeah, don't hold anything against Valtteri. That was a great drive, and the car he's got, it looked like it was suffering a little bit more in qualifying compared to other cars. And P12, still a respectable effort, but had he just got into Q3, we could have seen something a whole lot more special. So yes, for Valtteri Bottas, it is 8 points on the Cruel Room. And then we come to Pierre Gasly picking up a couple of points for the AlphaTauri team there. Yeah, what could be said for Gasly? They were really unfortunate with the safety car. They pitted a couple of laps prior to it. Then the safety car came out, and I think that both of the AlphaTauris were down in P14, P16, whereas previously they were about P8, P10. So they did really, really lose out. So Gasly did a good job to climb his way back through the field. But unfortunately, I didn't think I saw anything special from Gasly this weekend. We've not seen the wonder stuff that we've seen in previous races, and I based the drivers based on their performance, and I don't think it was the best. He did some good overtakes, admittedly, but that mid-pack was crazy. He got stuck in that mid-pack for a long time. Maybe had he got past Stroll a bit quicker, we could have seen him ahead of the likes of Bottas and Ocon ahead perhaps. So yeah, for this reason it is a harsh one, maybe by a point harsh, but nonetheless it's going to be 7 points to Pierre Gasly. I can't keep awarding drivers perfect tens every time, and I can't keep singing the praises. Sometimes I look at a race and go, that was a bit flat. And for me this weekend I felt that Gasly's race was a bit flat, and even without all those safety car issues, it was P8 anyway, and I don't think he'd have got any further forward. So a good recovery drive, Pierre. Don't want to slag him off, and 7's still a really good score. I'm just more generous these days because I'm mellowing in my old age. But yeah, for Pierre Gasly, just 7 this time around. Don't want to discredit him in any way, shape or form. I just didn't think it was special. What I do think is special, though, is, of course, Alexander Albon. What a legend. Here he is in the Williams, picking up 1 solitary World Championship point. The first for Williams on the board. Amazing, amazing drive. He had so much bad luck in qualifying. Well, he didn't, did he, really? Let's be honest. He got handed a 3-place grid penalty anyway for what happened in Saudi Arabia between him and Stroll, which was bullshit. Shouldn't have been given the 3 places for that, but he did anyway. But it didn't matter because he qualified 16th, out in Q1. Just missed out, unlucky. But he got disqualified anyway because he had to stop on track because he'd not got enough fuel. So he started at the back regardless of the penalty, regardless of the disqualification, regardless if he got through into Q2. He was getting disqualified anyway. So qualifying was nil and void. He started last. Then he kicked off and just kept going. He just kept going. It was up to... He had a good start, actually, to be fair to him. He had a strong start and was up to like 16th, 15th in the early stages of the race. We had the first safety car period. He stayed out. He got elevated up to about 11th. We had the second virtual safety car scenario that happened. He stayed out, got elevated up to 7th, and then was running just a few seconds behind the McLarens at that point then, in P7, and we're thinking, when's he going to pit? It was on the hard tyres. It was doing such a great job of managing the pace. We'd seen other cars and drivers struggle on the hard compound tyre, but Alex Albon was thriving on them, absolutely thriving on them, and he pitted on the last lap, popped a set of softs on, came out in P10 with Zhou Guanyu just that fractionally behind him, and he nailed that final lap on colder soft tyres. Even though there was soft compound, they were still colder than Zhou Guanyu's tyres, of course, even if they were used hards. And he held him off to come round and secure the final points-paying position with P10. A fantastic strategy by Williams, it has to be said, but it could have so easily not worked, and it wouldn't have worked in anyone else's hands in that car other than Albon's. Of course, if it had been like the likes of George Russell in that car, he'd have made it work, but between him and his teammate, who was going to make that strategy work, it was always going to be Albon. Full eggs in one basket. Well, thank you very much, Williams. They were like, look, let's go for it. Nothing to lose. They didn't have anything to lose, but they had everything to gain, and here is the gain of this weekend. 1 point for Williams. 1 point for Alexander Albon. A fantastic drive. It is going to be 12 points on the Cruel Room board to Alex Albon. No one's going to take that away from it. No one is going to doubt that. That was a cracking drive that other drivers were not doing. It was amazing. Fantastic stuff. Well done, Alex. Well done, Williams. I enjoyed that. And as mentioned, just finishing outside the championship points was Zhou Guanyu, who was battling for that final points-paying position with Albon at the end there, but he couldn't get him, could he? He drove a good race though, Zhou. Admittedly, he did have a good race. He was in and around his teammate, and then his teammate managed to pit through and get past the cars ahead, chip them off one by one, whereas Zhou just couldn't do it, and he just ended up here, P11, unfortunate to miss out on points as well. But that's the nature of the beast, isn't it, unfortunately? And it was just another P11. So far he's had a P10, a P11 and a P11. He's been close to the points, but just not getting them these last couple of races. So, unfortunately for Zhou, it is just going to be 6 points on the Cruel Room from me. I only awarded his teammate 8, so I couldn't really be that generous to him, could I? But I don't want to take anything away from him. He's doing really well for a rookie. I think the Alfa Romeo is a really good car. He's finishing in the places where it's expected to finish. It would just be nice to see him creep into the points a little more often. I think this was his best opportunity since the first round of the season, of course. The previous weekend was just unfortunate with all the penalties. So I think his time will come. He's going to get some more points soon. He just needs a bit of luck to go his way. He just doesn't need a bit of traffic. Needs to make a good decisive move, and that's all he is. He's one move away, or one little bit of luck away from securing a point again. So fair play, Joe, but it's just 6 points this time. And then we come to Lance Stroll.
Here, how come the only two Canadians in F1 end up crashing with each other in qualifying?
It had to be, didn't it? It just had to be. What was that from Stroll this weekend? Unbelievable. What a fecking muppet. Honest to God, he is driving like a right wet lettuce, isn't he? Couldn't believe it. Gobsmacked by that. Appalled. It was ridiculous. Crashing in FP3, leaving a team that a lot of damage to repair. They managed to fix it, and how did he repay them? Straight out the pits when everyone's clapping, going, well done lads, we got the car out. He turned into Latifi in qualifying, just totally fucking blind, didn't bother seeing him, and just went dush. Ripped Latifi's car to bits, and Stroll's car was out. So there we go, all that effort lads, I've done a bit more damage for you. Just a little bit more damage for you. And then what does he do in the race? He goes, you put your car to the left, your car to the right, left, right, weaving all about. And he did, didn't he? He weaved it all about, he did the okey-cokey, and he turned around, and he was absolutely shite. Absolutely shite. He was weaving, blocking cars, just left, right, down the DRS bits. And he got a 5-second time penalty for that. And then after all that achievement of weaving anyway, he dropped down to 12th, and then he had the 5-second time penalty on, and it didn't even matter. Oh, what a fecking muppet. What a muppet. Cannot believe it. So yeah, for Lance Stroll, I drove like an absolute tea towel, and it's Palmer of the Week. Palmer of the Week. You can't say any fairer than that. It was shit. And then we come to Mick Schumacher. Haas this weekend just not having the pace, then blaming setup. Weird one, wasn't it? Weird one. He did out-qualify his teammate, and in the end finished ahead of his teammate. Here he is, of course, but in no spectacular position. A couple of mistakes from him in the race as well, running wide, bouncing through the gravel a bit. And yeah, all in all, it just wasn't anything great by Haas, was it? Wasn't anything great. So yeah, short and sweet for Mick. We saw plenty of him, but it was all unfortunately slipping down the order. So it's going to be 6 points to Mick Schumacher. Maybe a point generous there, but there we go. Out-qualified his teammate, out-raced his teammate. That counts for something, even if he is off pace and making mistakes. And yeah, there we go. 6 points to Mick. And his teammate Kevin Magnussen finishes behind him, and he was out in Q1, had a better start though, got ahead of a few cars, was up to about 14th, 15th, was trying to get past Albon, made a mistake, bounced through the grass, lost a few positions. And again, it was an okay job by K-Mag, but nothing special again. Making mistakes, bouncing through the gravel, running wide, letting cars through. The medium tyre strategy didn't work for him either, did it? He did an Alonso, which was pit for the medium tyres during the second safety car phase. Stuck behind traffic, burnt the tyres out, and that was that. So, yeah, for Kevin Magnussen, again, just 6 points. Bit of a lonely race by Haas this weekend, and a disappointment because, as always, we're expecting him to high-speed circuit, maybe a bit like Jeddah, maybe a bit like Bahrain. You're thinking, yeah, maybe points again, maybe Q3 efforts, but this weekend it wasn't to be. So yeah, just 6 points to K-Mag as well. Both Haas's made mistakes, but even without those mistakes, I don't think that we're going to get points. And then we come to Yuki Tsunoda. Here he is all the way down here, and a little bit of sympathy for him because he was caught out with the first safety car period. They just pitted. He ended up dropping down to 16th position. I think here he is in 16th as well. So not really a great weekend by AlphaTauri at all there. Gasly was able to get into the points. It makes me seem a little bit harsher now considering where Tsunoda finished on what I scored Gasly. But there you go. That's the nature of the beast. I don't regret things. For Yuki Tsunoda, it's going to be 6 points on the board to him. It's pretty much going to be the same as Haas's. Would Tsunoda have got a point? Maybe. Maybe he'd have been able to get the likes of Albon that pitted late without that really bad safety car issue. But then again, Gasly was only 9th. So you got to weigh it up, haven't you? I think he'd have maybe just been in the points, maybe just outside. But either way, the safety car screwed him over. He was having a solid-ish race till then. It wasn't anything special, but it was solid. Yeah, 6 points to Tsunoda. A race weekend to forget, sadly, after that first safety car period. Next up, we have, of course, Nicholas Latifi. He finished in 16th position. Tsunoda was 15th. I'll correct myself from my previous comment there. Yeah, Latifi bordering on a Palmer. I know I've laid all the blame with Stroll there when I mentioned Stroll with Palmer of the week. But Latifi was playing silly beggars when it came to Lance Stroll, wasn't it? He was going to the left to let him through. Then he didn't bother letting him through. Then he could see that Lance was closing the gap there and drove through a closing gap. So I do blame Stroll for the incident, but I feel had it been the pair of them, had it been Stroll and anyone else, that wouldn't have happened. But because it was Stroll and Latifi, they're both thick and they both crashed. So yeah, big damage for Williams, big damage for Aston Martin, not required at all. And for Latifi it is just 3 points because in the race he did nothing. Did nothing in the race, that's all I'm judging him by, and he did absolutely nothing. So there we go. Only Latifi would get himself in a position and situation like that where he crashes, and he did. And then in the race, he didn't crash at least, so it's just 3 points for that. But he's not great, is he? He's not great. So yeah, Latifi, some people are probably going to say I'm harsh again, but tough. I think he did shite. And then we come to Fernando Alonso, a weekend of what could have been, but here he is down in 17th position, the last of the finishers. What a shame in qualifying that his hydraulics gave up the ghost and he couldn't change down a gear in the final sector of that qualifying lap, because that would have been something special. I'm not going to say it was pole, because his last sectors previously were like 6/10 off, but those 6/10 would have put him 4th, 5th. That'd have been an amazing effort, wouldn't it? But it wasn't to be. That then compromised him, meant he started 10th, couldn't make any headway from there, didn't make progress at all. Then we came to the strategy that it was on. He was on the hard compound tyres. He pitted, went on the mediums, came out in traffic, couldn't get past the traffic, cooked his tyres as a result, and then just tumbled back even further, having to stop again for another set of medium tyres. Almost got fastest lap, but Charles beat him to it, and just a weekend to forget. So for Fernando Alonso, it's going to be 4 points on the board to him. A weekend of what could have been. There was signs of brilliance there, but it just didn't come together, did it? I feel sorry for Fernando for that. That was a great shame. But yes, unfortunately, just 4 points on the cruel room to Fernando Alonso this weekend. Nature of the beast. And then we come to the first of the finishers on this list, of course, the last in the race. That is Max Verstappen. Oh, looks like yet another power unit related issue for Max Verstappen. What a shame. He was second, he was going to finish second, he wasn't going to get Charles, no one else was going to beat him. So that's 18 points gone begging once again, just like in Bahrain. Didn't need this, did he? He is miles behind the leader already. Charles on 71, and then I think it's George on 37. So yeah, it's a big gap already. Max down there, of course, with just the 25, the win in Jeddah. Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Red Bull really need to pull it together, and you also don't know if they've already lost a couple of power units. They're only allowed 3 for the season, so it could have further implications down the line where they've got to put new units in. So a really big issue. Fingers crossed Red Bull can get it sorted and we can see some more great duels and great battles between Max and Charles, because they've been great to watch so far. But yeah, this weekend wasn't to be for Max, and it's just going to be middle of the road. 5 points for any retirement like I'd do, but he was racing well until that point. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel.
Nikita, come back! We need to take the piss out of you!
Oh, Seb. What was that? Oh my God, it was so good to see him back in the paddock, and then my heart bled for him in FP1 when his car expired and he didn't get any laps in, and then he drove around on a scooter, and I was like, oh, that's Seb that we know and love. He got 5,000 euros, then he made a comment on, well, what happened to the 50 that Max got for touching Hamilton's wing, and I thought, oh, that's really funny, ha 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 ha, where's your 5,000 going to go, Seb? I love the joke. And then from then it all just went downhill, didn't it? Heavily shunting in free practice 3. Big shunt, actually. Both corners, both left-hand corners. The front end Didn't look like the team were going to get it out, but once again a mammoth job by Aston Martin, benefited from the red flag created by his own teammate who they'd only just got the car fixed for, and Latifi's car strewn all over as well that it ran into. It meant that Vettel could get out for qualifying, and he just put one lap in. It was a couple of seconds off the pace, but that's to be expected. You know, he couldn't warm the tyres up, just literally had to get out of the pits and go for it with 2 minutes to go. Did a lap. Okay, you know, we weren't expecting anything special. And then in the race, made a mistake, dropped it into the gravel at the corner Alonso crashed in qualifying at. And then we thought, well, if that's not bad enough, I've not quite damaged the car enough, so I'm going to drop it at turn 5, plough into the wall there, drop it on the sausage curb and go, whoa, bang, straight into the wall, and just take another wing off, because I know you've got loads of wings, Aston Martin. And then to compound issues even further, the pair of them are acting pathetic this race weekend, both of them, Stroll and Vettel, means that Williams have got a point now, and Aston Martin are the only team not to score on the grid. The only team not to score now. Aston Martin. Pathetic. So yeah, Sebastian Vettel, I was glad to see you back, loving it. And then I was just praising, you know, Hulkenberg, saying, look, Hulkenberg didn't do anything special, but at least he didn't crash. Well, Seb made up for that by 2 big shunts that have cost the team a lot of time and money. So yeah, Sebastian Vettel, Palmer of the Week. And last, but by no means least, it is, of course, Carlos Sainz.
I was rumoured to take the Haas seat, but I crashed on the way to the interview.
There we go. It had to be Palmer of the Week to Carlos Sainz. What was that all about? Unfortunate in some respects in qualifying. I will let him have that little one. He'd done a time good enough for 4th, was disallowed because he set it just as the red flags fell for the off for Alonso. But then couldn't get his second lap together again when he had the pressure on him. Made a mistake. Started 9th. In the race, dropped down, had a really bad start, was down to about 14th, tried to overtake someone, bounced it across the grass and straight into the gravel, lucky not to wipe out Bottas in the process. So, yeah, it was just a race weekend to forget. May as well not bother turning up with that. Ferrari down in 9th, not brilliant. Slipping down the order to 14th, even worse. And then by lap 2, you've thrown it all away because you've been a bit too over-exuberant with your snap of oversteer, bouncing across the grass, into the gravel and out. Palmer of the Week. That deserves Palmer of the Week. His teammate won. Carlos, I love you. I adore you. I want you to do really well this year. I think you've got the capability of getting the championship. The car's got the capability. But this was shite, and this is going to cost you. So it's a Palmer of the Week to Carlos Sainz. So there we have it. Those were the runners and riders of the Australian Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? Was I too cruel with the Palmers? Was I not cruel enough? Let me know in the comments section below all the thoughts and feedback, and I'll get back to every single one of you. The scoreboard, updated with the scores I've just given, are on the screen now, as mentioned at the start. Thanks so much to Dan Mushy Gaming for all his efforts with this scoreboard. He does the risers and the fallers, he inserts the scores and the Palmers, and he does a really cracking job. And of course, thank you so much to Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Jolie and Palmer skits you all know and love. He had to do quite a few for this weekend, didn't he? He had to do quite a few. Thanks so much, Dave, as always. You're a legend. So there we have it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you all in 2 weeks or a week's time. I can't really remember. But I'll see you anyway for the next Crawl Room, which is in... Is it Italy? Are we in? I think we are. I think it's time for Imola, isn't it? So yes, I will see you all then. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and much love.